The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Welcome back to the Personal Safety Show. We have with us today John Coyne. He is the leader of the Illinois Gun Owners Together Facebook group. And we're going to go in and talk about all sorts of different things with this group. IGOT is the acronym. John, welcome and thank you for coming here. Can you tell our listeners about your origin story? How did you get involved with firearms?
Thanks for having me, Marcus. Good to see you. Let's see. I think it was about 2015, and my brother was over at his son's house, and somebody rings the doorbell. And my nephew goes to the door and says, "Can I help you?" There's a guy standing on the porch just staring at him. And he said, "Can I help you?" louder. And the guy was sitting there staring at him. And then, of course, he got a little louder as well. And then he kind of slammed the door, and the guy walked off. But he said to my brother, "I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I need to get a gun. This weird guy just showed up, and he's just staring at me like there's something wrong." My brother stepped in and said, "Well, if you're going to get a gun, I'm going to teach you how to use a gun." And my brother had been a veteran. He was in the Navy and that. He calls me up and he says, "Yeah, I'm taking Tim to the range this Sunday. Would you like to come?" So I'm like, "Sure." I've never done that before. I didn't know what to think. I'm a little apprehensive. I never fired a gun. All I know is that people fire guns, people shoot each other, and many other people. That's all I would think about when somebody would mention a gun. So anyway, we went to the range. We got there really early in the morning. And believe it or not, there was actually a line forming. So we get in there, we start shooting. After you pull the trigger once, you're like, "Oh, I can kind of do this." So that's when it started. And at some point, we've gone several times. And I think I applied for a FOID card after the first time because I'm like, "Oh, I can do this." And I figured, I'd probably buy a gun too. So I was kind of hooked on the first time. I got the FOID card. Shortly after then, I had already taken a couple of classes. And then I decided to get a concealed carry. And my brother and my nephew were involved. My nephew's friend was a concealed carry instructor. And we all signed up and we went there with our friend Bernie. We went there and we sat in this gun store and we were there a Saturday and a Sunday, I think it was. And ironically, things Paul said was, "Oh yeah, whatever you do, don't go online and talk about a bunch of guns and stuff, because if you ever get involved with a self-defense incident, everything will kind of get used against you." So I guess I didn't really follow that advice, because the next thing I did was join a Facebook group. They're called Illinois Gun Owners Together. And that was, I think, about 2017 or so. And just participating in the group, was very interested. I didn't know that much. I by then had a few guns, but I really didn't know too much about them. And so it was interesting to learn from other people, and also interesting to learn a little bit about, this is, of course, after I'd taken the concealed carry, and I already was kind of familiar with some of the law, but, you're always learning. And in this state, in Illinois, they're trying to change things and put new restrictions on us, and I guess it's a good thing to stay current on that. Well, anyway, I was in the group for a while. The group's interesting because you do get a mixture of legal talk and defensive situations, and then you do get into a little bit of, I guess, the politics of the anti-gun bills that always are coming through. And there's a lot of humor that happens. We've got a lot of memes, and it's all encompassed in IGOT. It's really not one thing. And some people that join the group, they don't understand that we're not serious all the time. Sometimes we're just joking around. Another great thing is we've done some shoots where we'll get together with groups of people, and I've made some really good friends like you, Marcus, where it really came in handy during the pandemic when we're all stuck in our houses and we're having these Zoom calls and we're talking about all kinds of stuff for hours at a time. But I made really good friends. It's really cool because you can meet somebody, you can interact with them, and then all of a sudden you got a new shooting buddy and you can go to the range with them, and there's kind of a whole, I wouldn't say club, but just group of good people, guys and girls, and they're into this because everyone needs to preserve their right for self-defense, but also because it's fun, and there's a camaraderie, and there's a whole culture to it, and no one would ever know that unless they'd experienced it. So anyway, in 2017, I think I joined. To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you who invited me, or maybe I just found them online. They were on Facebook. I found it interesting. I was just kind of local to some of the people that had started it, one of which being Carl, who got smart and left the state, like a lot of our friends have, but kind of got friendly with him. And he asked me if I wanted to become an administrator. So I'm like, oh, sure, okay. And that's where it started. We've been through several iterations of the group. Facebook really doesn't appreciate our kind. They don't like things that have to do with the Second Amendment or firearms. I feel they definitely have a bias toward us. We had the group, we grew to about 9,000 or so. We did some really cool things, like we did shoots where we went to this place called Buffalo Shooting Park, also known as Buffalo Rock, which is basically a strip mining quarry that people can shoot down into this pit. It's a lot of fun, you know. They used to allow all kinds of interesting things. They've curtailed that a little bit now, but you could bring all kinds of old junk from the house that you basically throw out anyway, and they'll let you shoot at it. So it's kind of unique. It's not something that happens at a regular shooting range. Everything is very, very controlled. It's safe. You always have to be mindful of the 4 basic safety rules. And if you use any one of those rules or 2 of those rules, nobody's ever going to get hurt because they're redundant for a reason. You have something in your hand that you can be destructive with, and you want to make sure that you're careful for your own sake and also for your neighbors and the range and also everyone else. It's always important. But we have fun there. They let us rapid fire. You get to shoot at all kinds of interesting things. So anyway, we've done that a number of times. We've also gotten involved we've been to Springfield, actually in pretty good numbers. I don't know who it was that came up with the idea for the original T-shirts, but the Illinois State Rifle Association, they had yellow shirts with black writing. We had black shirts with yellow writing, so it made a nice contrast and really allowed us to stand out. And it's kind of funny, most people kind of took us as a bunch of clowns because there's a lot of joking around that goes on in the group and a lot of memes in that. But I think we became more relevant and being also more important to them because I think a lot of their membership are aging, and there definitely is a perception of the typical quote-unquote gun owner was, and that's just totally gone out the door now as more younger people have gotten into the Second Amendment advocacy and also the sporting aspect of it. Also, many women and other people who aren't your traditional older silver-haired white men that scream, "Get off my lawn." That's not reality anymore. It's everybody. And of course, the last few years, more and more people have gotten involved because everybody realizes that we're all mortal. And with all the craziness and the civil unrest we've seen, everyone wants to be safe. And for perfectly good reason, self-preservation wins the day. We've been through a few iterations because, I don't know, we've had some elections going on and we've had some controversy and some conflict with some anti-freedom folks. And again, Facebook didn't like us, so they shut down our group for whatever reason. And each time we rebuilt it, they find a way to shut it down again, and they don't tell you why. They just kind of do it, and there's no way to really appeal it. Even though they say you can appeal it, they never respond. This iteration has been a public group, and we're very careful about the content we let in. Everybody's by default on post-approval. So if we see anything, if it's appropriate, we'll allow it. If it's inappropriate, we kind of reserve the right to preserve the group by disallowing certain posts. We haven't had to over-moderate, I don't think. Most things make it in the group, and most people stay in the group. Only if people get really, really obnoxious or they start attacking other people, which you see that kind of stuff on social media for a whole bunch of different topics. We try to keep it clean, keep it a clean fight, as they say in the boxing ring. So it's been fun, and it's been up July, I think will be 2 years this time, and it's been pretty good and pretty drama-free.
John, this is a great description of IGOT. There are also some offshoot groups. Can you talk about some, and specifically women of IGOT and a couple of the other groups? Can you give us some insight into what those offshoots are?
Okay, we've had several different offshoots. One, of course, you mentioned Women of IGOT, and that's kind of self-explanatory. And of course, the women are in our group as well, and they interact just the same there. But they can kind of have their own conclave if they want. We also have a radio operators group, which is kind of born during the pandemic. Well, there's some people that were ham radios and personally got a GMRS license, which basically allows me to use certain frequencies, and also I can participate with some repeaters. There's one great one called NSCA, which actually I'm personally in Palatine now, but they have an antenna on top of the Lutheran General Hospital, and we can actually hit that antenna. And I've spoken with people, as far away as Wisconsin, even across the lake into Michigan, people as south as like Field and Lyons Township, I think. And then also one time I think we spoke to somebody out in Belvedere, which is almost out to Rockford. So it's pretty cool, and you can use that. And had a motorcycle group too. It just shows you what kind of great people you meet. You have common interests in different things. It's not always about guns. It's not always about politics. It's not always about policy. It's been a lot of fun. Again, met a lot of great people, and it's made some really good friends and people that help each other outside of gun stuff. We go over to somebody's house, have a beer. I made some good friends. Here we are. It's been, for me, since 2017, and now it's 2023. So this is like 6 years or so that I've been involved with the group. For no other reason, I find myself here sitting with you, Marcus, because, of course, one of my great friends, Marcus, we met through IGOT, and Marcus, who I didn't know when I originally did my concealed carry, I do know, obviously, now, and he did my renewal for me. Was great.
Fantastic. So IGOT is not a lobbying organization. It's you mentioned the word club. It's kind of like a fraternal buddy type thing. But the individual members are involved in going to meetings with various politicians. We mentioned iGold. It's also mentioned in other episodes. There was a meeting in Deerfield a couple of years ago with Senator Julie Morrison. Can you tell us about that meeting with Julie Morrison?
I remember that. I think we were in Deerfield. It was Village Hall. It was interesting because her, meaning Julie Morrison, who's been very much anti-gun advocate and maybe on every single anti-gun bill that they've had in the state Senate, and then sharing the stage with her was Bob Morgan, and of course he was champion of this assault weapon ban. Julie Morrison basically in that meeting famously said, when she was talking about an assault weapon ban at the time, which they eventually got, that if you didn't register them, maybe we'll just confiscate them. And there was a video of that went out, and it's kind of funny. It went viral, and it actually made it on some of the national Second Amendment gun podcasts and also YouTube channels. She's definitely not a friend of the Second Amendment, and nor is Bob Morgan. The one good positive thing I did here is that some of the anti-gun people are starting to take notice that a lot of the numbers and the homicides, murders, and so forth are actually due to a lot of the places that have high crime, how we can intervene and get kind of better the situations, that the environments that people live in, and hopefully give them some hope and get them out of poverty, because it's all tied in, that should alleviate some of the violence. Of course, Lake County is nowhere near as spicy or violent as Cook County. They still have their problems, and it was interesting. It's great that they're realizing that a lot of this violence has to do with people with poor mental health. Of course, I think by default, anyone who would just cold blood take a life, there's obviously something wrong with them. The whole impetus for this meeting and a lot of these meetings now is these mass killings that we've seen. Gun owners, like everyone else, I mean, we're just horrified by it. We can't even imagine what it would be like to be there, or also to lose a family member, or see somebody basically disabled for life because they've got an injury. I mean, it's horrible. Of course, we have a different method of thinking about it as to just passing more restrictive laws on all the good people that just want to protect their families. We would like to take a more active role in just being able to protect ourselves in anywhere that bad guys would try to prey on us. And of course, that brings us to a parade, which is a prohibited place because it's a permitted event. So no one's supposed to carry a firearm at a parade. However, the the monster that I think killed 7 people and injured so many more. I think it was over 40 people. Apparently he missed that memo because he showed up there to murder people that day, and he certainly was successful. And that's horrible because it's the same kind of thing, the same kind of MO. You got somebody, they've got mental health issues, things happen, people look the other way like it seems like his father did, and now all of a sudden you put somebody who's mentally unstable in possession of a firearm, and the result is horrific. But we're in the environment, and you never know who the good guy is or the bad guy is, and at any time, something really bad could happen. And I feel we should have the right to basically protect ourselves, and that should be anywhere. Gun-free zones, as the Second Amendment rights people say, are killing zones. And I think it's something like 90% of the mass killings, or mass shootings, if you want to call it, or the active shooter situations, happen in these gun-free zones. So it seems like it's a no-brainer. You know what? There's so many more good people than are bad people, and if we're able to defend ourselves, I think that benefits society more so than restricting us from that, because we're just kind of like a force multiplier for the police. Police are overwhelmed with stuff. We could be there to try to protect ourselves. There's some that would say, "Oh, well, you're not trained." Well, you know what? I got a secret I'll share with you. Many of us go to the range. Many of us have taken classes up and above the concealed carry class. Like I had mentioned, I've taken a few defensive pistol classes, and including one that and Marcus was actually a part of this one, where we were literally shooting from behind barrels, and we were literally shooting as if we had been injured and on the ground, and we're shooting with our offhand. You basically have your right-handed or left-handed. God forbid you're right-handed and your arm, your shoulder, your hand gets injured. You better be able to act with your left hand. Otherwise, what good is it to have that firearm? There's all kinds of things you learn. And I've shot alongside of military and police people. I've taken classes with military and police people. I've taken classes from military and police people. So there really is a culture, and there's a lot of great opportunities. It costs money, but I think it's worth it if you're talking about saving your life or saving someone else's life or making it home that night. You're better to have the skill and not need it than need it and not have it. There's a lot of talk about the bad people that go out and do horrible things with firearms. And we see it in Chicago all the time. All the shootings that take place on a daily basis and it seems like there's no end to it. But by far, there are more people that either save lives, defend themselves, defend their property with firearms every day. The CDC had a report that it was something like 500,000 to 2.5 million defensive gun uses in any given year. And the defensive gun use would be defined as, obviously, if somebody is shot, when they're doing something illegal or bad, obviously that's a defensive gun use, but also somebody just mentioning to a would-be criminal, "Hey, I'm armed, don't come near me," or occasionally if somebody is brandishing, even though you're not supposed to do that, or God forbid, have to draw your gun. Obviously, it's pretty serious at that point, but I think it's a better outcome if nobody gets shot and the bad behavior that the bad guy's doing gets stopped. I think if you look at the numbers, and I did it once, I think that if you take 2.5 million and you divide it out across days and seconds, it works out to about defensive gun use every 12.7 seconds in this country. So I think it's an asset that people are armed, and I think the vast majority, 99% of them, are good people and they would never harm anyone. Fortunately, we don't have the Wild West, or at least not around here. Maybe the city streets are a little different, but I think that helps keep things uneventful, which is a great thing. Story that got lost, you forget about things when some tragedy hits, but Indiana had passed a constitutional carry, which essentially means that you don't need a license, you don't need to take classes, which I agree with. I think that it's your constitutional right, and that needs to be respected first. Now, I think with that being said, It shouldn't be mandatory to have to take a class, but I feel that you are a moron if you don't take a class, because not only do you need to learn to be safe, but you also need to learn the law so you don't wind up getting yourself in trouble, which is very likely that you would. But there was a gentleman, I think he was 21, or his name was Eli Dickens, and he was in, I think it was a Greenwood Mall or something in Indiana, and some crazy maniac that was intent on murdering people walks in the shopping mall and into a bathroom. He had a bag on him, and then apparently he had some rifles with him. And then he decided he was going to go out of the bathroom an hour later, gained his courage or whatever it was, and started shooting at people. And this 21-year-old kid, who apparently had no formal training, who I'm sure he had been to the range because he was pretty proficient, had no concealed carry license. He was just a innocent guy just sitting there walking through the mall with his girlfriend, sees this guy come out and start shooting people. He decided that he was going to take action. And from something like 40 yards, or maybe just over 40 yards, I think he placed 8 of 10 shots that he took on the bad guy, immediately stopping and killing the bad guy. And after the bad guy had already killed 3 people, he stopped him. And I think he should be hailed as a hero, not because he went out that day thinking like I have a gun and I have a big ego now and I can shoot people. It's not like that. He just went out. He wanted to protect himself, protect his girlfriend, and as a result, protected many other people in that mall that would have been murdered by that crazy gunman if he hadn't been there. Most people wouldn't remember that because people don't really pay that much attention to the news, and it's literally in one ear and out the other, unless somebody is pushing an agenda like the anti-gun people do, who basically have these ideas and these anti-gun bills pre-written, and they just keep them on the shelf, and then all of a sudden a tragedy strikes, and they jump into action, and they try to push these agendas. None of these bills are new. They've been around. They've been voted on at some point before, but they never got approved. So what they do is they wait till the opportunity knocks. What did Rahm Emanuel say famously? Never let a good disaster go to waste. And it's unfortunate because you would think people would want to pass bills for the right reasons and not just take advantage of the situation. But, the anti-gun people, they're very good with the PR, and they're very good with the media and working that and garnering public support for any new thing or seemingly new thing that they want to push, even though they're really not new. They're old ideas. And we see the result of just keeping people unarmed, and do that, you have little or no recourse. Of course, you want to run and get away as fast as you can, but sometimes you don't have that option. And thank God there's people like Eli Dickens that would step up and defend themselves, their girlfriend, and just by default defend the other innocent people that just wanted to go out and shop that day.
John, this is a great conversation. The one thing that I've always said, and this was actually codified in a meme recently, was every mass shooter, the mass shooting is over upon the arrival of the second gun. So we'll let that sink into everyone. So how could someone join IGOT if they wanted to investigate more and maybe participate in that community?
If you'd like to join us, you can look us up on Facebook. The group is called Illinois Gun Owners Together, or IGOT, and we are a public group now, which seems to be a better match for Facebook, because there was never anything nefarious going on when it was a private group. But now it's transparent. People can see what you write or see what you post, and maybe that helped clean it up because people are more careful about what they put out there. Just because their friends, family, or whatever, they can basically see what's going on, which is fine. That's how it should be. If you're going to say something in public, say it in public. So you can look us up again. It's Illinois Gun Owners Together. It's on Facebook. You should be able to find us and answer the questions. They're basically very easy to answer and kind of just help us keep the bots out. But we'd love to have you guys join us.
Very good. Do you have any final closing thoughts for everyone?
We're Our rights, of course, always are under attack. And we saw earlier this year in January that the legislature and the governor passed this bill. They kind of rammed it through with an assault weapon ban that would affect way more than AR-15s or AK-47s. People with granddaddy's shotgun, people with regular everyday firearms that have magazines that hold over 15 rounds. We're all affected. We're all affected by this, whether they realize it or not. And, we need everyone to get active. And, of course, you can also come. You can check out what we're doing. You can visit these town hall meetings like I did with Julie Morrison in Deerfield and Bob Morgan in Highland Park. I think we changed either of their minds because they pushed this bill through. But we definitely voiced our disapproval of it. You can learn about that stuff. And then finally have these lawsuits, and I asked Bob Morgan if he thought that if they were prepared for all the lawsuits that were going to come back at them after they passed this, and he kind of smirked and said he was, but I don't think they could have imagined the dozen or so lawsuits that would be filed in state and federal court. So one of these lawsuits actually involves a group that I'm a member, actually a board member of now, called Guns Save Life. And you can check them out. They're Guns Save Life, and it's not plural. It's LIFE. And you can check out their website. And we also have meetings locally. Right here, we're up here north, basically northern Cook, southern Lake County. And we have a meeting on the second Wednesday of every month. And you can kind of learn about what's going on with lawsuits and also the different legislation that they're trying to push through. I think the latest one is ban body armor, because apparently body armor somehow makes criminals more dangerous. Fortunately, we haven't seen that. That's the latest thing I think they're working on. And of course, without a group like I got or reading a Gun Save Life newspaper, Gun News, most people wouldn't even know about it. It's not stuff they talk about on the news all the time. They only talk about bad stuff when somebody does something crazy and murders people. I invite you to check out them. These lawsuits are expensive, and the Gun Save Life lawsuit is actually FFL Illinois, or Federal Firearms Licensee of Illinois. That's our suit. There are several other suits with Illinois State Rifle Association money, and we need to support the organizations that are supporting our rights.
Great, John. Thank you very much. For our listeners, if anyone has any questions on anything we've discussed today, you can certainly reach out to me at firearmmentorcard.com. That is my electronic business card. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. If you'd like to appear on the show, do any underwriting, please reach out to me. Thank you, John, for your time today.
Thanks, Marcus.
The views Stay safe out there, and pretty soon I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick with Firearm Mentor, signing off. Expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.